Thanks for stopping by. Today I'm going to show you how to do brakes on your GM truck. Today I'm going to be working on a 2015 Yukon, but this is going to hold true for all the full-size trucks, whether it's Cadillac, pickup truck, whatever it is. Follow the same instructions. I'm going to be putting on power stop brakes. It's supposed to be an upgrade to the brakes that are on the truck when it comes from the factory. So I should be able to stop better. It's for towing and things like that. Plus, they send you these really cool stickers when you buy their brakes. I'm going to be doing the front and the back, but I'm probably going to split it up into 2 videos. So let's do the rear disc brakes today. When they ship these things, they sometimes coat them with grease. Probably not a good idea to have grease on your brakes. You'll notice right here, this says rear passenger side. Definitely want to go by the manufacturer. Don't worry about the direction of these holes and these slots. What matters is what the manufacturer says for the position of the rotors. And you don't have to worry about wiping this completely dry. Brake clean dries really quickly. If you don't have an impact wrench, it's a good idea to break your lug nuts loose before you jack it up. Since I'm going to be changing the rotors, I need to take these retaining clips off. $13mm socket to take the caliper off. And you may need to hold this part here. Sometimes you need to put a wrench on it. Give you a better look at it once I get it off, because it screws into this pin which moves. So I'm just holding this from spinning because otherwise it might turn. And then you should be able to get the caliper off. Might need to put a screwdriver in here, but it comes off like that. And you don't want to let it hang by this hose. So you want to put it someplace it's not going to fall. And these are the old pads. They just slide out. And once you get the caliper out of the way, you have 2 more bolts in the back that need to come off. They're 18mm. These are really tight. I already tried a ratchet and it won't budge. I think I'm going to have to get a hammer. Instead of getting a breaker bar, I've had much better luck with putting a wrench on there and banging on the end of the wrench with a hammer. Let's see how that works. I move my camera so I don't break it banging on the other one. Well, I got one out. These things are really in there. Must be this Loctite all over them. If you really are having a hard time and you feel safe enough, you could get in there with a torch and heat up the head of that bolt, get it hot. That will help get the Loctite to release. Or if you have one of those fancy induction tools. Anyway, then this bracket comes off. Now hopefully I can get this rotor off. There's a parking brake behind here. These use shoe type brakes for the back. First I'm going to try and knock it loose from the axle with a hammer. I think that did it. There we go. If you really get stuck, just find the appropriate size metric bolt and you can thread one into each side of this and you tighten them down the same amount on both sides and then tap around with the hammer, give the bolts a little turn, keep tapping, and it should eventually come off. These are the parking brake shoes. They almost never get used. It's just for when you're parking. Back in the old days, before the lawyers came around, these used to be called emergency brakes. This thing right here, this little wheel, this is the adjustment. As these brake shoes wear down, this wheel will turn and expand the shoes out a little bit. You just want to make sure it's not seized up, that it can move. And that seems fine. And this adjusts by itself. So I'm going to just spray all this down with brake clean and put the new rotor on. And like I said, this stuff dries really quick, so you don't have to worry about wiping it down. While you're in here, check your axle seal, make sure it's not leaking any fluid. I have a tiny bit of grease residue there. I'm not going to worry about that. Just going to clean this up a little bit. Hopefully it won't stick as much next time. And I'm going to add a little bit of anti-seize. Supposed to help keep things from sticking and getting all rusty. And you can put a little dab on your studs. Don't worry, it's not going to make your lug nuts fall off. And again, make sure you're putting the right side on per the manufacturer's instructions. Don't worry about what the guy on the internet said about which way these holes are going. And you'll see I smudged this up. You don't want that. Love this stuff. Take your caliper bracket and pull these metal clips off. You get a new set with the pads. And just clean this up with a wire brush. You want to make sure these things here, these are the caliper slide pins. You want to make sure they move nice and easy. And you can pull them right out. They should turn easy and go in and out. They send you a pack of lube, but it's really small. I have this, so that's what I'm going to use. Let's put a little dab on there and work it in. These rubber boots right here can be replaced if they're torn. With Power Stop, they send them to you, but mine look good enough. I'm not going to bother changing them. Put your new retaining clips on. And you want to take a little bit more of this disc brake grease, not a lot, and work it into these little slots here. This is where the brake pads move around. There's 4 spots. And now you can put your caliper bracket back on. And now you can put your new pads on. On 2 of the pads, you're going to see this little metal tab here. That squeals when your brakes wear down. That should go on the inboard side and up. So just make sure this little metal thing is on the inside of the car and facing up. And then the pad that goes on the outside doesn't have one. Now I want you to notice how thick the new pad is compared to the old one. It's worn down quite a bit. So we're not going to be able to get the caliper back on. And the reason for that is as your brakes wear down, this piston comes out. So we need to push that back in. You could take one of your old pads, throw it on there, and put a big C-clamp on there and push it back in. I have this little crank tool, much easier. Just stick it in there and crank, and it'll push the piston back in. Just take your time and go nice and slow. And definitely only do one side at a time, because if you have both calipers off, you can be pushing this one in and it can blow the other one off. So one at a time. You shouldn't have to force this back in. It should go in fairly easily. I should tell you that you're supposed to break loose the bleed screw with the caliper in the upright position when you push that in, so it forces all the dirty fluid out of there. I'd rather take a chance with pushing the dirty fluid back than breaking off the bleed screw and causing myself more problems. Now you can just slide your caliper back in place and just push your pins in as you're doing it. And put your bolts back in. And you'll see here I'm having an issue with, as I try and tighten this up, this one's turning. So you may have to put a wrench on that pin to hold it so you can get the bolt tight enough. And that's 20 millimeter. And that's it. Do the same thing on the other side. After you finish putting your pads on, don't just jump in the car and drive down the street. Check your brake fluid level, make sure it's okay. Then start the car and gently and repeatedly step on the brake pedal. The pedal's at first going to go down to the floor. Just do it a few times. Eventually the pedal will come back up to where it feels normal again. Then check your brake fluid. And then what you want to do is take the car up to speed and repeatedly step on the brakes, applying hard pressure a couple of times in a row without coming to a complete stop. This will heat up the pads a little bit and get everything nice and seated. And then drive around normally for a few minutes to let the brakes cool down. Then you can put your sticker on the car. And if you want to see how to do the front brakes on the same truck, I'll put a link to the video right up here. Thanks for watching.